She and I on one episode actually kept stopwatches and started and stopped them when we were actually getting work done, and it turns out over 2 days we got a little under 14 hours of work done. So it's not a lot of time to perform the transformation of the space, and that's why it's so frantic on set. These shows, like I say, we do 60 shows a year, and we actually do 20 cities, usually around 20 cities, and we go away for a block of shows. We do usually 3 or 4 shows at a time, and we allocate actually 3 days for shows, and not 2. We have one day we call day 0. This is our first day, and it's our first and only chance to meet the homeowner and look at the space before we go there and start rolling with cameras. So on a show like While They're Out, for instance, it's our one and only chance to make sure that our ideas that we have been working on for about 2 weeks prior to the show will actually work. We've been given photographs, video footage, and sketches of the room we're going to work in. We can't tell for sure that our ideas will actually work or be suitable until we get into that space. And for me as a carpenter, it's very important. I have to figure out how I'm going to attach things to walls, how I'm going to get the furniture into the room, things like this. So it's an important day. Now, While They're Out was a surprise show. We had to keep this show a surprise for people. We couldn't let the folks in the home or the person we're going to surprise know we're going to be there. And often on day 0, the person we're going to surprise would come home at the end of the day. And I remember early on in the show, we always forgot this. And we did an episode with Chase Dakota. She is this blonde designer we had, very, very talented. She, myself, and Leslie were in this bedroom. We were taking measurements. The room was to be a Turkish-inspired feng shui room. That was the theme. So my task was to convert the bed into a 4-poster bed, build a canopy for it, build a corner armoire, a window seat, and at the time, a little bedside table. Leslie had to sew hundreds of yards of heavy silk fabric to turn the bed into a canopy bed, put the canopy over it, and do all the bedding for this bed. It was a big undertaking, plus make the seating for the window seat. A lot of work. So we're done after about half an hour doing our measurements, and we get bored, because Chase is still doing her thing. A lot more things she has to figure before we can leave this room. So I start to move things around in this room. It's like a room that's not set up very well. So I start to try and bring my ideas of feng shui to this room. I'm rearranging things, moving things around on the dresser, on the mantelpiece. Leslie is lying on their bed. They have one of these very unusual Tempur-Pedic mattresses, those like memory foam mattresses. She's intrigued by this thing. She's rolling around, checking it out. Look, I can jump on the bed, nothing moves. It's kind of weird. So she actually calls her husband to tell him that they should look into buying one of these things. She likes it so much. So when we're done, we head off to Home Depot, but we leave the room in kind of a mess. We don't straighten it out. We're in Home Depot, that's our major sponsor. We're doing a little shopping, and I'm in the carpentry aisle, the lumber aisle rather, when the director of the show, who's with me, his phone rings, and it's the husband. He's calling up in an absolute panic. He's the guy we're going to work with to surprise the wife. And it turns out that the wife got sick at work that day and came home early. She was walking around the house, and she walked past the bedroom. When she looked in the bedroom, she was intrigued. She saw that everything had been moved around. There was an impression of a body, or bodies, in the bed. There were footprints all over the carpet she'd vacuumed that morning, and the worst thing was, Chase Dakota left her Starbucks coffee mug on the mantelpiece, and it had her lipstick mark. She has evidence. My husband's up to no good. So she's calling him up, accusing him of having an affair. So this poor guy calls up in an absolute panic, no idea what to say. We're trying to give him ideas of things he might tell his wife. And he's like, I can't tell my wife that. She knows when I lie. My eyes always start twitching. So, I have no idea to this day what he actually told his wife, but the bottom line was we realized we had to be more careful in order not to betray the presence of this show at somebody's house. So what we started doing was bringing a digital video camera with us. And before we entered any space, we put it into a video mode and then take a panoramic shot of the room. That way, before we left the space, we could review the room as it was before we entered it and make sure that everything was straightened out. We'd even brushed our footprints out of the carpet as we backed out of the room. And it was these desperate lengths we were forced to go to because of you ladies. You're like detectives. The average guy comes home at the end of the day and doesn't care about a whole lot. Get these shoes off, get the paper, watch a little sports center, that's good enough. But the lady in the house will notice things, like a hair on this carpet. Honey, whose is this? Don't lie to me, I will get it analyzed. And it's made doing these shows very difficult. It is so hard to keep a surprise from the woman of the house. For one, how often does your husband, in the 15 or 20 years you've been married to him, how often has he sent you away for a 2-day, all expenses paid, spa weekend with your best friend. You ain't buying that. So what happens is, the lady of the home will call home on the hour, every hour, not trusting what's going on with the husband. It is the funniest thing, and each time the phone rings, we get yelled at in carpentry to stop. You can't make any noise. It wouldn't sound good if you heard an air compressor going off in your home. You wonder what's happening. So it makes it so hard to make progress. The funny thing is though, when you send the husband away, he disappears. It's like you were married. Fishing for 2 days? Cool, I'm gone. Just disappears. Comes back at the end of the day almost reluctantly. But what a difference when they do come home. When the wives come home, there's an amazing amount of appreciation for the effort that went into this makeover. They get the effort to keep it a surprise, the design, the whole 9 yards. It's really an experience that I think 9 out of 10 times they really enjoy. When the husbands come home, and you've made this place over for them, they're usually just mad at you. We moved their big screen TV, we've unplugged their surround sound system, their bar has been moved, they just get so angry at you, and it's so funny, they get quite hostile. And that's, of course, what we try to avoid. So we always try and do shows for the ladies, but it's been very hard to keep it a secret. Now we do film these shows with 2 cameras, we work for about 10 hours a day, so we shoot up to about 40 hours of film, but it gets edited down to about 40 minutes, that's how long a 1-hour show is, then it's mixed in with commercial breaks. The 2 days are very frantic. First day, of course, is a race to get it's a race to get set up and get started. While they're out was always hampered by the fact it was a surprise. We couldn't really start doing any work until the person's left. We'd often put a cameraman across the street hiding out in a bush somewhere, filming the person, loading the car and driving away. Then we come in and do get set up. And for carpentry, I couldn't really get set up until about 10 in the morning. That's when I started getting set up. And it took about 2 hours to get all that equipment organized. So for me, it was around noon before I could actually start doing any work. And of course, noon is my official lunch break, so I took my half-hour break. I wouldn't start till 12:30, and that's why on the show I was always running behind. Trading spaces, I could start work at 8 in the morning because we set up carpentry the day before. It's a lot easier. We work frantically on day 1 to catch up with the late staff, but we never know how things are going to roll out until the end of the day, which is why on While You're Out and Trading Spaces, we'd work as late as we could in the evening. What usually determines how late we go is what kind of neighborhood it was. If it was young children in the neighborhood, kids who go to school the next day, we'd stop around 8 in the evening. Day 2 of filming, it's a race against the clock now because we have a deadline looming. Trading Places' deadline was 4 p.m. That's when you had to have your room finished. They would stretch it a little bit, but not too much. While You're Out, deadline was based on when the person was coming home. So we had to be not only finished,